Right then, hello everybody, welcome back to Team Prawn Racing. So, post-Snetterton update. Snetterton went really well. We dipped below the 2-minute mark in qualifying with a 1:58.59. Well into the 58, I could not be happier with that. Best last year was a 2:03 flat, so that gives you an idea quite how much better the car is doing. Turns out we had a couple of things set up wrong. My new splitter end fence design has turned out to be quite draggy, and at some point I've increased the rear wing angle and forgotten about it, and we were running 3 or 4 degrees more rear wing than last year. Top speed on the straights was down by 10 miles an hour, but on the infield, everywhere sub 120, top speed was up. So the engine is making the power, but it just, car was too draggy. Everything, front area is bigger. Yeah, it's quite a draggy car. So that is something we need to work on if we're ever going to match Josh at his 156s. New lap record, again. Anyway, all is pretty much well on the car. We got a load of tyre data from our race sense gauge that came from Parts Garage. Thank you very much again, Al. And it's telling us that the front end is actually working really well. We made some spring rate changes, thanks to a bit of advice somebody gave me in the run-up to Snetterton. You know who you are. Thank you very much. Made some spring rate changes. It's really made the car come alive. Doing the tyre temps and the tyre data has showed us that we actually need more rear camber. So I'm going to be adding more rear camber before Thruxton, as well as taking a bit of wing angle off. Now, the only downside was that before race 2 at Thruxton, I could just hear a bit of a blow on the exhaust. It didn't sound manifold side, it sounded post-turbo, just from the kind of brrr noise that it was. So I got the car up in the air, we've got our new splitter off. I've had the downpipe out. I asked Oliver to help me water test it to see if it was leaking, and he decided to do this. You can't spill any out the top because then the test is invalid. So you're going to say what we're doing?
I'm going to water the garden.
What? So that wasn't the one. So instead, next thing to come out, because it obviously wasn't the downpipe, next thing to come out was a flexi, and the wastegate flexi, and you can kind of tell already, can't you? Yeah, this is shafted again. So I had to do this in a big hurry. I couldn't get anyone with a TIG welder to help out at the time because it was super short notice, so I cut this out myself and migged it back in over the ceramic coating, and it is not very nice. Unfortunately, I've got to do that again. So I'm going to get to work with the grinder, cutting this out. I'm going to get a new one on order straight away. We'll replace this, and then the car will be in full health and ready for Thruxton.
Ta-da!
So we're post-Snetterton, just going over a few little tweaks and changes before Thruxton, and one thing we've discovered is that the car could probably do with a little bit more rear camber. So we made a real effort at Snetterton to use our amazing race sense tyre gauge that came from Al at Parts Garage. Now this not only does pressures all around the car with NFC links to your phone, it also does weather reports, so you know the temperature and the weather where you were at the time, and it has a pyrometer probe for properly probing tyre carcass temperature. So the tyre temps, along with the wear on the tyre that I'll show you in a second, suggests that we could do with a little bit more rear camber. So we currently, on the front axle, we have about a 12 to 15 degree spread of temperature hotter on the inside edge of the tyre. On the rear at the moment, we've got no spread. They come up to temperature well, but they're the same temperature the whole way across. Now I thought that was great. I've been chatting to a few people, and it turns out you want it slightly hotter on the inside edge. So I'm going to show you the rear tyre, show you how the tyre wear sort of confirms what the pyrometer is saying, and then we are going to swap out the rear shims for some steeper, thicker ones. But this is not quite as simple as it might look. So one rear tyre, outside edge, and quite obviously inside edge. Now it's using all of the tyre well. It's using it right into here, and it's using it, as you can see, all the way out to here. But if you look at the wear, This has got absolutely loads left on the inside, and it's just starting to roll off this outside edge, and you can tell by the temperature colour as well, the little bluing effect on the outside. So whilst it's working well, it's using the outside edge of the tyre a little bit too much, which tells us we could get more camber on the back. And yes, I am using a road tyre on the back now. This is a 295 AO52, and I think it's been brilliant. There is nothing within the Motorsport UK yearbook that says you can't. So we've been running this for most of the year now, and it's really transformed the way the car works in the first couple of laps. Big thumbs up to this on a lightweight car that cannot heat its rear tyres. That's the caliper and the rear disc off. So then what we're going to do, we are basically shimming between this plate which holds our caliper carrier and everything and the axle. I don't know if you can see, but there's already shims in here. We're just changing them for a different shim. Now, the issue we have is that this is already shimmed about 3 degrees, and the bolt heads start to get a little bit unhappy. So what I'm going to be doing, as we're going up to about 4 degrees, is using a tapered washer to try and counter the angle of the shim. So the shim's going to go that way, and the tapered washer is going to go that way to try and keep the bolt heads square. I know a lot of people just crank them up and hope that the bolts cope with it, but I always worry that you'll reach a point where the bolts just give up and the heads snap off, and that wouldn't be enjoyable. Right, so I've got the bearing off, and here's what we did have in. So this is a 2.5 degree camber shim, minus 2.5 on the bottom, and then this is a toe shim. I forget what it is, it's kind of irrelevant. And that is a slight toe shim to reduce toe in on the beam. We can then tweak it further with our tie rods, but we tweak static toe on shims. So these are actually Clio shims, and all you've got to do is just nip the top 2 corners off, and they match the bolt holes on this chassis perfectly. There you go, super simple. Nip the top corners off, 3.5 degree shim. That is going to drop in there. Dun, dun, dun. Line that one up so you can actually see. That's all going to drop together like that. Stub axle back on. Right, and there we go. That's that bolted on using the stepped washers. Now the washers had a little groove in them, so I've marked the thick side of each washer with a line, which is the top, and then to stop them rotating, a tool made up this little tool. Drops over, tighten it up, swaps around, fits on all 4, just like that, so you can hold that perfectly level whilst you tighten it. Now the idea is this shim offsets the angle of the shim inside, so that the bolt head is still pulling squarely to the beam. And I reckon that's worked pretty well. So I'm going to get the wheel bearing back on, and the disc and everything, and that's one side done. Right, so that side done, onto the other side. Basically, it's the same, isn't it? Only problem is, and I'm sure a load of you have had this as well, rear wheel bearings, they never remove intact. Now I've tried to put this one back together, but I damaged the inner seal cover. So unfortunately, new rear wheel bearing needed. However, thanks to Parts Garage and Al, I've always got that sort of kit. Always got it sat there on the shelf, ready to go. All the spares, all the bits. I don't even ask Al for this stuff. Stuff just turns up to make sure we are stocked up and we've got everything we need. So I'm going to throw the new wheel bearing on the car, get the brake back on, and that is a geometry sorted. Only thing left is to take it to the flat patch at work and do a quick alignment. Right, so that's all back together. We've now got a ton of camber on the back wheels. Let me spin this and show you. So, yeah, kind of hard to see. I haven't measured it yet, but it looks like a lot. Come over this side. It just looks like quite a lot now. Looking forward to trying that out. So, making more changes toward the end of the year. I've been looking at Aero stuff quite a bit lately. At Snetterton, we were down 10 mile an hour nearly on top speed up the start-finish straight. We did 155 there last year, and this year we were like 143 generally. Something on the car is really draggy. because on the infield, everywhere up to about 100, 110, the car was actually slightly faster, so the power is there, but the drag at the top end is, it's increased substantially. Now, something I noticed, and this is quite handy, Jared taking pictures in the same place every single year, is that the wing was a lot steeper than we ran it last year at Snetterton, and I tried to remember why. Let me show you. So this is our wing adjustment system that's been designed by Robin and is, really, really simple. Each of these notches on the cams represents half a degree on the angle of attack. Now this is where it came off when I took it off. I don't remember when it was, so I popped it back on in the same marks. However, when you compare pictures at Snetterton last year, you see where this cam is in that picture, and then compare it to now. I'll put the same picture up from Snet. This is now a lot lower at the front, which means, because of the way we've done it, to keep the wing always near regulation max height at the back, we actually hinge it from the front. Nice little design from Robin there. Basically, these used to be much further round and the wing was much flatter. Now, from memory, I think I added 2 degrees angle of attack at Donington last year for the last round. Cold, greasy, dampish conditions, didn't want any issues going down Craners. I think I wound some wing on. And then, I don't fully remember. I think I did the same again at Donington this year, because we really, really struggled in quali with cold rear tyres. I was really worried about binning it down Craners lap 1 on cold rear slicks. So I added another 2 degrees, I think. So anyway, where we are now, I'll show you. So where we are now is kind of 9 degrees. Now that is how I've been measuring it, top to top, but turns out you don't measure to that top point. You actually measure to the very leading edge, which is another few mil down. And when you measure it to there, with the end plate off, donk, it's actually 10 degrees. So 10 degrees is already probably at the limit for a wing, but I've been chatting to Josh a fair bit recently, and he says you don't actually, well, I sort of knew this, but I've just pretended not to somehow. You don't set the wing angle just relative to the floor. What matters is the wing angle relative to the airflow. That's why I did all the wool tough testing 10, 12 years ago. Don't know why I didn't then pay any attention to what I'd done. So it's actually the wing angle of attack is angle of the roof relative to the wing. So if we move this and we go to the roof in the middle, that's now at 5 degrees. So the roof's going 5 degrees down and the wing's going 10 degrees up. The actual effective angle of attack on our wing was 15 degrees. Pretty much any single element wing becomes hugely inefficient and stalls beyond about 10 degrees. So it's effectively just becoming a blooming grey air brake. Chances are we can flatten this off about 5 degrees without any major loss of downforce, but hopefully a huge reduction in drag. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, having undone these, it's so clear where I've had it before, just from the blooming marks, isn't it? So I'm going to whack it up to there, see where it was before, measure that, and then we'll make a decision on where we set it, finally. So, I've adjusted that to where I've had it before. You can see that is now on the hole marking where it was, and that is just a shade under 7 degrees. So, it was a shade over 9, it's now a shade under 7. So I've definitely added some angle at some point. I'm going to flatten that out even further now. I think we're going to go another 3 degrees off and see how it looks. More importantly, see how it feels. So there we go, that is the wing now set, and it looks like it's leaning backwards like that. It's not. These tops are actually still level. It just looks so different to how it has been. That is now set at 5 degrees. Next up for fettling is going to be these splitter end plates. That's not bolted on, I've just popped that there for your benefit. So I made these in a bit of a hurry after the crash at Brands, and they work fine, and it kind of ties the arch into the edge of the splitter and everything. But what I think is happening, the old ones used to have a gap at the back. These, it just goes in and stops, and I think we're getting a bit of a pocket of air here, and it's causing high drag. So what I'm going to try and do is open out a little slot in here, Trying to keep it neat in some way, but we're going to open out a slot there, see if that helps reduce front end drag.
Moments later.
Right, done. Short and sharp and not beautiful. Probably cut a bit too much there, but by the time I cut it, it was done. The idea is air will come in, hit here, and it can now come out and send it up there. So that side is done. That side is done, in and out that way. Simple. Will it make a difference? Who knows? Right, well that's it for today. Short but sweet. Rear geo changed, wing flattened out, splitter end fences opened up to try and reduce some drag. Now, there might be an off chance of a cheeky test at Thruxton tomorrow. Don't know yet, waiting on a message back, but fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully that'll be another little mini bonus vid for you. If not, I guess I'm testing it in quali. Anyway, really nice getting back into a bit of a rhythm, getting vlogs out. Thanks to Al at Parts Garage for keeping me supplied with stuff like wheel bearings, just stuff I need. It's just there. I already had that. I've got a box of bits Al sent me that I might need one day, and you know what? I always need something from that box. So thanks, mate. Hope you guys will like this one. Have fun. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I think by the time you see this, Thruxton, the race will have actually happened because we're a bit behind chronologically, but we're going to keep it going. We're going to keep these videos coming out in order. Anyway, I'm rambling. Take care, guys. See you soon.